Good morning. As the first rays of sunlight glint off the frosty ground, it's hard not to wonder what the coming winter will bring. With autumn deepening and temperatures slowly dropping, many of us are already starting to think ahead. Will this winter be mild and manageable, or are we in for a season of deep chills and heavy snow? Across the country, meteorologists are closely watching the data and buzzing about the potential for a colder than average winter in several regions. Their early predictions are sparking conversations and even a bit of concern. These forecasts aren't just wild guesses, they're grounded in careful analysis of global weather patterns that are already taking shape. Scientists are tracking shifts in ocean temperatures, atmospheric pressure, and wind patterns to get a sense of what's ahead. The main driver this year? The anticipated return of La Niña. This climate phenomenon cools the surface waters of the Pacific Ocean, setting off a chain reaction that can influence weather across North America and beyond. La Niña tends to steer the jet stream in ways that often bring colder, snowier conditions to some areas, while others may experience drier and warmer weather. The exact impacts depend on where you live, but the effects can be dramatic. Another key player is the polar vortex. If this swirling mass of cold air becomes unstable, it can unleash blasts of Arctic air, sending temperatures plummeting far to the south and creating the potential for extreme cold snaps. By carefully analyzing these signals, La Niña, the polar vortex, and other atmospheric clues, meteorologists can sketch an early picture of what the season might hold. These insights help us prepare, even if the details are still coming into focus. It's important to remember, though, that this is a long-range forecast. Think of it as a preview or first draft, not a guarantee. Weather is always full of surprises, and forecasts will be updated as new data comes in. As December approaches and we get closer to winter's official start, the outlook will become clearer. We'll have a better sense of what to expect, and you can plan accordingly for the holidays and beyond. For now, let's break down what these early signs could mean for your winter plans. Whether you're hoping for snow days, planning a ski trip, or just want to stay cozy and prepared for whatever winter 2025-2026 has in store. So, what exactly is La Niña, and why is it making headlines right now? You might have heard meteorologists and climate experts mention it, especially as we head into the colder months. But what does it really mean for our weather, and why should we care? La Niña is known as the cool phase of a larger climate pattern called the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO for short. This phenomenon begins in the tropical Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from where most of us live, but its effects ripple across the globe. During a La Niña event, powerful trade winds sweep across the Pacific, pushing warm surface waters toward Asia. This allows much cooler water from the deep ocean to well up along the coast of South America. The result? A significant drop in sea surface temperatures in the central and eastern Pacific. This cooling of the ocean doesn't just stay put. It actually shifts weather patterns all over the world. Here in North America, for example, La Niña can mean colder, snowier winters in some regions, and drier, milder conditions in others. Scientists at NOAA keep a close watch on these ocean temperatures, using satellites, buoys, and computer models to track every change. This fall, after months of monitoring, they've officially confirmed that La Niña is active once again. The ENSO cycle is like a climate seesaw, swinging between La Niña, the cool phase, El Niño, the warm phase, and periods of neutrality. Each phase brings its own set of weather impacts, from increased hurricanes to droughts or floods, depending on where you live. After recent shifts in ocean temperatures and wind patterns, meteorologists now say we're officially back in La Niña territory. This announcement is a big deal for weather forecasters and anyone planning for the months ahead. With La Niña's arrival, forecasters dive into decades of historical data, comparing past La Niña winters to predict what might happen this year. They update seasonal outlooks, looking for clues in everything from ocean currents to atmospheric pressure. Because La Niña developed in the fall, its biggest influence will be felt during the winter months, especially from December through February. This could mean more snow, colder temperatures, or even unexpected weather twists, depending on where you live. The big questions on everyone's mind now are, how strong will this La Niña be, and how long will it last? The answers will help meteorologists fine-tune their forecasts and give us a better idea of what to expect. By analyzing the latest data and running advanced climate models, experts can adjust their predictions as new information comes in. This ongoing process helps keep the public informed and prepared for whatever winter may bring. Ultimately, the strength and duration of this La Niña will shape just how classic, or unusual this winter becomes. Will we see record-breaking snowfalls, or will some areas experience milder conditions than usual? As we turn the calendar to the winter months, let's keep an eye on the forecasts and see what La Niña has in store for us. Whether you love snow or dread the cold, this climate pattern is sure to make the season interesting. When La Niña is active, it shapes a familiar winter pattern across the U.S. The polar jet stream shifts north, bringing colder, wetter conditions to the northern tier. Regions like the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, Great Lakes, and Ohio Valley often see more snow and cold. Ski resorts in the northern mountains usually benefit from deeper snowpacks. Meanwhile, the southern states tend to be warmer and drier, sometimes worsening drought. La Niña tilts the odds toward these trends, but doesn't guarantee them every day. Even in the south, occasional cold fronts or storms can still occur. The overall character, though, is likely to be mild and dry in the south, active and cold in the north. Understanding these typical influences is key to making a regional forecast. Now let's look at what's different about this year's La Niña. Here's a crucial detail. This La Niña is expected to be weak. The Pacific's cooling is only slight, making its effects less predictable. Classic La Niña patterns may not be as consistent or pronounced this winter. Forecasts suggest this weak La Niña could peak early and fade by late winter, returning us to neutral conditions. That means La Niña's strongest influence will likely be in December and January. With a weak event, other weather patterns can easily disrupt the expected outcome. Last winter, also a weak La Niña, brought surprises that didn't fit the usual mold. So, while La Niña is still the main factor, its weak nature adds uncertainty. We can't lock in one outcome. Other, less predictable factors could tip the scales. This year, we'll need to watch for additional signals, especially from the polar vortex. Let's talk about why that matters. Beyond La Niña, there's another powerful force shaping our winter, the polar vortex. While La Niña often grabs headlines, the polar vortex can be just as influential, sometimes even more so, when it comes to determining how cold and snowy the season will be. The polar vortex is a vast, swirling mass of extremely cold air that sits high above the North Pole, encircled by a strong jet of winds. These winds act like a barrier, usually keeping the coldest air trapped far to the north, away from much of North America, Europe, and Asia. When the vortex is stable and those winds are strong, Arctic air remains locked up, resulting in milder, more manageable winters for many regions. Cities can experience gentle snowfalls and relatively comfortable temperatures, even in the heart of winter. But if the polar vortex weakens, wobbles, or splits apart, it can unleash a dramatic change. Frigid Arctic air escapes its northern prison, plunging southward and bringing with it intense cold, snaps, blizzards, and even record-breaking winter storms that can catch communities off guard. This year, meteorologists are watching closely, as some atmospheric signals suggest the vortex could be more unstable than usual. Subtle shifts in wind patterns and temperature readings are early warning signs that the vortex's grip may loosen. One key clue is the extensive snow cover building up across Siberia. When Siberia is blanketed in deep snow early in the season, it can set off a chain reaction in the atmosphere, increasing the risk of a disrupted polar vortex. Certain wind patterns over Eurasia are also being monitored as potential triggers. If the vortex does weaken, it could override La Niña's typical influence, sending waves of Arctic air deep into the southern United States and other regions that don't usually see harsh winters. This means places that are normally mild could face unexpected cold, ice, and snow. The polar vortex is truly a wild card. Its behavior is notoriously difficult to predict more than a few weeks in advance, making long-range winter forecasts especially challenging for meteorologists and the public alike. Sometimes sudden stratospheric warming events, where temperatures high above the Arctic rise rapidly, can disrupt the vortex, triggering rapid and dramatic changes in our weather patterns almost overnight. That's why meteorologists will be monitoring the polar vortex closely all season long, using advanced models and real-time data to track its every move and provide timely updates. Ultimately, the state of the polar vortex could make or break this winter's forecast, tipping the balance between a mild season and one filled with extreme cold and snow. Stay tuned as we keep a close eye on this unpredictable force. how do we forecast with so many moving parts? One key tool is analog forecasting. We compare today's global setup, a weak La Niña, a potentially unstable polar vortex, to similar years in the past. These analogs help us see which patterns are most likely to emerge. If most analog years brought colder winters to the Midwest, that boosts our confidence in a similar outcome. No 2 years are identical, but when several point the same way, the forecast strengthens. This year, many analogs suggest a colder, snowier winter for parts of the country. Using history as a guide gives us a more robust, evidence-based outlook. So, what does this mean for your region? For the northern U.S., the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, Great Lakes and Ohio Valley, a colder, more active winter is likely. Expect more snow days and colder temperatures, especially in cities like Chicago and Detroit. The Midwest could see a mix of snow, sleet, and freezing rain, with above-average snowfall in the Great Lakes. In contrast, the southern half of the U.S. will likely be warmer and drier, with fewer cold snaps and less precipitation. Places like Dallas and Atlanta may have a mild winter, but drought concerns could grow in the West. The big wild card is the polar vortex. If it disrupts, even the South could see rare cold or snow. Still, the overall trend for the South is mild and dry. For drought-stricken areas, a dry winter could be a real challenge. These patterns don't stop at the U.S. border. In Canada, La Niña usually means a cold, snowy winter, especially from Ontario to Atlantic Canada and in the west. British Columbia often gets heavy mountain snow while the prairies turn colder. Most of Canada should brace for a more traditional, harsh winter. In Europe, the polar vortex is the main driver. If it weakens, cold Siberian air can sweep west, bringing snow and freezing temps. The beast from the east pattern can hit the UK, France, and Germany. However, Europe's forecast is more complex, with other factors like the North Atlantic Oscillation at play. Meteorologists there will be watching the setup as closely as we are. As we wrap up, remember, long-range forecasts are about probabilities, not certainties. We can tilt the odds toward a colder or milder winter, but can't predict exact events for your town. This year's weak La Niña and unpredictable polar vortex add extra uncertainty. If La Niña fades by February, the pattern could shift dramatically. The polar vortex can change quickly too, making updates essential. Meteorologists will refine the outlook as new data comes in. Use this forecast as a guide to prepare, but stay flexible. A colder, more active winter is possible. Make sure your coat and snow gear are ready. Be ready to adapt and check for updates as the season approaches. We'll be here, tracking it all, to help you stay safe and prepared for whatever winter brings.